Welcome to another episode of Transformational Thinkers with Sarah Sheehan. Today, we sit down with Andrew Brooks, CEO of Contextual. We dive into his journey that's taken him from laboratory as a Princeton-educated chemist to building some of the most innovative technology platforms in the AI space. From co-founding SmartThings, now a household name in smart home technology, to leading Contextual, an advanced AI orchestration company, Andrew shares the profound lessons learned across startups, acquisitions, and technological revolutions. In our insightful conversation, Andrew unpacks his path from science to business innovation, reveals what it takes to spot and scale the next big idea, and demystifies the critical difference between assistance-level AI and truly game-changing, purpose-built business solutions. We explore why owning your AI is essential for organizational success, the realities of rate limiters of AI adoption inside enterprises, and how CEOs can bridge the widening gap between technology's pace and human adaptation. This conversation is filled with all kinds of takeaways, including mindset learned from endurance athletics, like running 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days, and how relentless forward progress translates into entrepreneurial success. Whether you're a tech enthusiast or a serial entrepreneur, this episode is packed with actionable insights to help you lead and innovate with confidence in today's fast-moving
Andrew, I'm
AI
so
landscape.
excited
To have you with me on Transformational Thinkers today.
Thrilled to be here. Really looking forward to the conversation.
Fantastic. Andrew, you graduated from Princeton with a chemistry degree, and today you're building one of the most sophisticated AI orchestration platforms on the market. Can you walk me through your journey from chemistry to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. Backstory there is I always loved science. I think I loved that science had real answers. There wasn't ambiguity necessarily in the formula and getting to the conclusion. And so focused on science, focused on chemistry in university. Ultimately, my senior year thesis at Princeton was based on sulfur compounds. And so I was working with sulfur compounds in the lab constantly. And sulfur, I'm sure people are aware, is what smells. It's what people think of smells like rotten eggs.
It's very pungent.
Exactly. And so I tended to smell a little bit like rotten eggs, as my roommates would be happy to share with you. There was a few things from that. I also just kind of didn't love the concept of being a bench chemist for my life. I enjoyed it, but I thought there was kind of more out there. This is also, I graduated in the late 90s. And so things with the internet were happening. And I jumped into a job with what was then Anderson Consulting, is now Accenture, kind of one of the big IT consultancies, because I felt like that was just going to give me a different perspective on business. And it was great. They put me through some coding school and technology school. I got to work very quickly with phone companies in Manhattan on their technology stack. But also there was a lot of people in the late 90s jumping into startups. They were moving around and joining early stage companies. I was fortunate enough, the partners that was on one of my projects left to start a company. And so I jumped over and joined that company very early on as well. And that was a managed services provider. Basically, we did monitoring and management of infrastructure and data centers.
Still relevant.
100% relevant, delivered in different ways now. We sold that to Sun Microsystems in 2005. And so I got to see the journey from literally starting up. And that job, I got to be an engineer. I got to be a sales engineer. I was an account executive. So I was able to do a range of tasks. And that kind of gave me the bug for building and scaling companies, technology companies. So starting in 2005, I went on a journey with a core group of folks who I still work with today. Some of the same founders from 2005 are founders in my current company. And we have built a series of technology platforms. We did a small business marketing platform called SMB Live, which we sold to a company called Reach Local before they went public. probably best known for creating a company called SmartThings, which we sold to Samsung. Anybody buys a new Samsung TV, you're going to be told to download the SmartThings app, and that's what we built. And now running a company called Contextual. And in all of those, there's a through line, which is technology shift, underserved market. Can we create a platform that makes that possible? And that was small businesses getting online, consumers getting smart home technology, and now for us, especially mid-market companies benefiting from the advantages that AI presents. And so that's the kind of the short journey with many successes and some failures along the way.
When you take a look back at SmartThings, most entrepreneurs would have shifted down or decided to take some time off, and you kept going. Why did you make that choice?
Yeah, I mean, so SmartThings was a great success. Super proud of that. My daughters walked into a store, seen the technology, and said, "Oh, you did that." There's a lot to say for that. I think a couple things. Number one, so I did take a little time off. I left SmartThings, did some races, some other interesting things. And that's all just part of kind of
Sure.
recharging the batteries, right? But I do think it becomes a little addictive to win, to have something be successful, to successfully grow and ultimately sell a company. And I think that maybe it's a good addiction to have, right?
I think this is a very healthy thing to be affiliated with success.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm in my early 50s. I've got plenty of gas left in the tank here. So I think there's more innovation and more creation in the future.
That's great. You have done this multiple times, clearly, taking something from an initial concept, and as you stated, you find a gap before the market can even name it, build into the gap, and either sold or scaled the company. What does it feel like for you personally when you know you found the next thing that you're going to do?
As an entrepreneur, you have to have deep conviction. If you don't have deep conviction that what you're building matters or that people will care about it, it's going to be a pretty lonely journey. You can sense it, right? When you're describing hey, we're going to try to do this, and people react in a certain way, you can kind of sense there's a real opportunity there. I'll take you all the way back with the earliest company, SMB Live, which was really around this gap for small businesses to get online. My brother was a stonemason. He was running the exact type of business that we were interested in, and he wasn't online. And I was like, "Hey, you got to get online." And he's like, "I don't know. How do I figure that out?" And so, how do we make that easier was the opportunity. The origin story for SmartThings, actually, my colleague and co-founder Alex, he had a water break in a vacation property that he had, and he didn't know about it, and a lot of water leaked into it, and then it froze. And so that's a bit of a see a need, fill a need situation where you sense that there's a gap that needs to be covered off. And I think the other answer to the question is you should feel a little bit of wind at your back, not always wind at it's not always going to be easy, but you should feel moments of wind at your back, market validation. Other people are starting to move in this direction. The wording that you use to describe a need is starting to be parroted back to you in different forms in the online sphere. Those are all kind of the indicators that you're doing something right. A lot of people do things right, and they don't necessarily have the success that my co-founders and I have managed to have. And I think part of that is also having a good sense of how to build partnerships early, how to build relationships early, who might be an acquirer of your business, who's going to be an investor in your business. Knowing that and having those relationships, I think, is key from day one.
To shift gears, you have often talked about owning your AI, and it's really specific language that you're honing in on, which you were just mentioning in your last answer. What are you saying to the CEO who just rolled out a co-pilot implementation and thinks they've got their AI strategy all together?
We spend a lot of time with our clients talking about what is the AI journey that they're going to go on. And we're big advocates for assistant level AI. And it's not what we do. What we do is something slightly different. But assistant level AI for us would be your co-pilots, your Claude Coworks, things that make an individual more efficient, more effective, et cetera. Our focus is very much on, okay, what is a business level, a business process level AI answer? And the reason we say own your AI, and it's a great point because we have certainly heard our phrasing that we've been using for years parroted back to us. Our point there was a couplefold. Number one, we believed that AI assisted development was going to make the creation of purpose built software so much faster and so much less expensive that every business had the right to have some purpose built software. And that, of course, is manifested in the whole vibe coding ethos is that, hey, I got online this weekend and vibe coded this new app. Put aside production grade, proof of concept. The reality is there that AI makes software development faster. And so that was one. We believed that customers, businesses should have that. And number two, we believed that AI itself was a bit of a new form of electricity. It was not part of your tech stack. It's people, process, tech, and then AI as an entirely separate stack. And that as a result, if you believed your people were a differentiation or a differentiator or a mode, if you believed your processes were uniquely defensible, how you implemented AI was also going to be a unique moat, uniquely defensible. And again, that phrase, which we have used, own your AI, what it really means is recognize that this is an opportunity for you to create solutions that are unique to your business, that are unique to your people, your data, how you work, that build moats, that reinforce moats for you as an organization, and that you should not be beholden to a SaaS provider. It shouldn't be a feature. It shouldn't be something you rent. It should be core to how your business operates over time. And that was going to be the trend line. I think we've been very much borne out on that. There's a ton of talk around how, hey, the differentiation in AI is understanding the business and how they implement it. That's the core of what we've always been saying.
That makes a ton of sense to me. The whole notion of purpose-built AI, that's where you're going to deliver the most value to a business. Because the assistants, they're helpful, right? They do things for you that do cut time for you personally, but they're not going to help the entire process be executed. So I completely see the special spot that you're focusing on in the market.
And we're looking for step function changes for businesses, right? Lots of our clients will start with automation. A lot of people think of AI and they think of automation. Oh, can I automate this task? Can I take something that maybe has a couple of people doing it and reduce the number of people doing it? There's only so much automation that you can put into a business and efficiency to be gained. And we tend to focus on private equity backed companies where obviously every dollar of EBITDA that you can drop to the bottom line is impactful. But again, there's a cap to that, right? There's only so much efficiency to be gained. We really want our clients to think about AI not just as an efficiency or automation tool, but as how can you get new insight from the data that you have available to you to drive your sales, marketing, revenue generation activities in new or different directions? We love clients who are thinking about, are there new services or product offerings that we could use AI to create that open up new revenue streams for us that didn't exist before? And again, of course, if you think about that, oh, this is my product, that's of course you should own that AI. It is yours.
That's terribly exciting. That is right where you're going to be able to make not only top line revenue and bottom line results. And so that's phenomenal. This is a perfect inflection point to shift to talking about solution AI, that concept. Can you explain your AI building AI concept?
Certainly any developer who has used one of the AI coding tools, your Cursors, your Claude Codes, your Codexes, is going to recognize how fast AI can build software, right? It's been trained on the corpus of knowledge. From our perspective, what we're concerned about, and the reason it's called solution AI, is what is the business solution that you are trying to get? How should that business solution be architected in its components, the data components, the separation of microservices, what's agentic, what's just traditional software, what connections do you need, how does it all fit together? What are the patterns of that solution that are proven and known. For example, I'll give you a very easy example. We have patterns around document extraction. That's one of the things that we do a lot of, meaning we receive a document and they want to get some information from it. Well, there's things that you can do to rotate the document. That'll make AI a little bit better at extraction. There's things that you can do to split documents that are large or separate documents, reassemble them, that sort of stuff. All of that is a pattern around effective AI document extraction that we would say we have spent time understanding and refining and perfecting. And so solution AI for us is an umbrella of what I would consider obviously core software development intelligence, like any other tool like that, knowledge of the contextual platform and how these solutions are put together effectively for scale, knowledge of these patterns that are ultimately repeated, whether it's information tasks or data discovery tasks or deep research tasks. What are those patterns that go into it and how are they well assembled? And then ultimately, what are your objectives? What are you trying to achieve? What are the KPIs of this solution? That umbrella for us as solution AI is a little bit of our secret sauce around how does an AI system know how to solve a business problem effectively and not in a proof of concept way, in a production system ready way? How can that AI system ingest requirements? We're right now at the point where we could take a recording of a conversation with a client, take that transcription, pump that into solution AI, get the requirements that comes out of it, translate that into an architecture, set it off to go cook for a little bit, and you come back and a significant portion of that solution is in place. And so humans are linear thinkers. We don't think logarithmically, and we're in a logarithmic world here. It's hard to know, are we at the knee of the curve or are we still in the early stages? Who knows? But so for us, that solution AI is the macro intelligence of, if you came to me and said, I have this business challenge, how do we facilitate the people, and there's still humans doing work to understand it, how do we facilitate the ultimate delivery of that solution as efficiently as possible with all of the corpus of knowledge that we have around what works, how does it work, how have we done this before, how do you measure this for success, how do you scale this, etc.
It's tremendously exciting. Even just listening to you describe that you can take a client meeting and go directly into creating the solution with such ease.
Yeah, and the key that you want to communicate to clients is humans still are required in this process, right? We have to make sure that we're doing the right thing. We have to make sure that it meets the expectations. We have to make sure that it was done in an appropriate way. But all the more reason, it just reinforces that own your AI. There's increasingly not a cost barrier to any company having these solutions built in a very specific way to what they are trying to do. They can tend to add on to each other. Oh, we built solution A, and now we have this data. What else can we do that? It becomes a little bit of a flywheel. And that's one of the reasons we strongly urge our clients, don't let great get in the way of good. Get a solution out there, get started, start learning 100%.
That's phenomenal. You are inside many enterprises deploying AI that changes how work actually gets done. What's the real rate limiting factor?
I'm going to give a couple of answers here. Number one, it is easy when you're first talking to a client to have them describe a challenge or a problem and kind of minimize the edge cases themselves. And I don't think it's that they're minimizing that on purpose. I think it's easy for humans to kind of, oh yeah, that thing happened, but that was a one-off and that was a one-off, so that they minimize the edge cases. And they minimize kind of the intelligence that humans are therefore applying to those edge cases to make a decision. So when we are first deploying a solution, we will almost universally never seek to turn on a full automation. There's going to be a human in the loop. We're going to narrowly define what we want the AI to be handling versus what it should be escalating for additional looks. To give you a classic example, one of our clients is in the fleet management space. They provide management for forklifts in warehouses. And the defined scope and the data set that we initially started working with was, we're going to get these invoices and these work orders, and it's going to be a single invoice with a single work order on a single email. Within that invoice, there's going to be a single piece of equipment, a single forklift, a single serial number for that forklift that is indicative of the thing that we're being invoiced for, and that's what we want to automate. Great. You narrowly define it, because the reality is they get invoices with 50 different serial numbers on them. They get invoices where the work order didn't come in together. They get 100 pages of invoices coupled with a TGI Fridays menu inadvertently on that email. And so if you have done this enough, you know there will be variance. You don't let the variance crush the system. You let the variance actually flag very early and route into a kind of a human in the loop process to help you learn the additional governance rules. Oh, tax allocation looks this way in this scenario. Tax allocation looks this way in this scenario. And so I think data complexity is one of the rate limiters. Even if a client says, oh, this inbox is always this, I'll tell you right now, it's solicitations to get your headshots done by AI. Like there's lots of stuff in that inbox that needs to be handled. So that would be one, data uncertainty. We do a lot of work with early advocates, especially if we're deploying solutions across a group. We want to know the 2, the 3, the 4 people who are going to be the biggest advocates for this, who are excited to see how a solution like this can help them, not take their job away, help them. And we tend to seek to deploy in a way that creates those early advocates, that they can provide feedback and the solution can evolve based on their feedback because now there's ownership, right? They understand this owning your AI. They have been part of the feedback loop. You don't try to satisfy everybody. If you do a great job for those early folks, they will be then your best advocates within the organization, and it will grow from a change management standpoint slowly on top of that. I would say the last rate limiter I would talk about is honestly again, this focus on automation of we do this way, and therefore we want to use AI to do this way versus a skill, which I think has to be a learned skill. It's a new muscle, which is there an entirely different way for us to do this? Does it have to happen in the order that it was happening? If we had more insight at a certain stage, would we jump around differently and kind of rethinking those processes at their core versus simply automation? I don't know that it's a muscle yet that people truly have. And I think that's a rate limiter just to adoption. Because when people think about AI, they think about chatbots and they think about AI being good at search, right? And maybe helping them screw up a PowerPoint.
It's amazing. Even those task helpers are tremendous for professionals. But your point is well taken. I think that as you have more and more client experience to fuel your thinking on that, I think you'll have a lot of variance in how you approach what you're doing in the process of designing your solution.
We do a lot of roadmap work. A lot of people do roadmap work. Like, what should the adoption roadmap be? And of course, we've got our framework. What's the ROI and what are the systems and how's it going to work? But generally, the activity that I believe we are in a unique position to engage in and that I want my team engaged in is a bit of an AI transformation partner role, which is, yes, you've asked us to do this task, but let me share these 5 other ideas with you. And maybe they're not ready now, but I'm going to plant the seed. Or let me show you how we're doing something similar at another client in a way that we believe to be transferable, at least in its concept, to you. And so I think there's a new consulting role, which is very much, it's got to be more than just, it's not slideware. It's like really understanding data and process and saying, this is where your transformation journey could go.
That's a remarkable place to be. Have you, in working with clients, seen active resistance against one of your projects?
We have found bubbles of some resistance. The way to approach that is simply to acknowledge that, especially AI systems, if you're using LLMs, they're non-deterministic. The results may vary. And how do we embrace your feedback, right? I think people just want to be heard. They don't have something shoved down their throat. They want to be heard and they want to be active participants in that. And they want to understand, like, especially from the leadership of an organization, what does this mean for me? Am I doing a different job or am I training this system to replace me? Our current overall brand at Contextual is very human focused. We talk about giving your humans superpowers. That same company I gave the example of, the fleet management company, we do cost savings analysis against invoices that they receive on behalf of their customers, looking for areas where they're overbilled or the rates seem to be creeping up or they're inconsistent with market or something was out of contract. And previously, they had a team that would do this as they were able, as time allowed, in order to go to a client and say, here's what we found. Now that system is doing it all the time. And so those same customer service managers, these folks now have this superpower where they go to their client and say, we've looked at everything and we've analyzed it 6 different ways to Sunday, and here's our conclusions. What an empowering place for them to start that conversation with their client. Hey, by the way, we paid for ourselves this month because we found you these cost savings. The resistance is when people only hear, take my job, and that threat. I think the embracing happens when is this a tedious part of your job? Great. That's a good thing for us to focus on. What more information could you have at your fingertips in a new and compelling way to make you more effective? Great. Let's think about doing that. That's where we see just kind of substantial acceleration of adoption within an organization.
Sure. And I can only imagine, because you are developing purpose-built AI solutions that are specific and integral to a business, that you're innately going to have less resistance. People are going to innately be more supportive, more excited about coming to see it tested.
Yeah, I think that's right. Again, this is when the solution shows up as a new UI that's in their brand, connected to their systems, mapped to how they want to do work, versus kind of an irritating side feature that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. The excitement certainly goes up, to your point. And we want teams that are looking at this, again, not just at cost, but a new foundation and a new fabric of AI capability that makes us a better, stronger, smarter, more effective organization moving forward.
Have you been working with a client where you thought, wow, that CEO is not ready to lead an AI transformation?
Since we primarily work in private equity backed companies, it is very clear from the sponsor down into the portfolios at the board level that this is an imperative. And so I don't think there's any CEOs that haven't gotten that message. But I do think we certainly see substantial variance within those portfolio companies as to, is this a CEO who's starting kind of system down, which is what we do, right? Big kind of systems. Or is this a CEO who's starting assistant and use case up, like the individual use case up, the Claude Coworks and the OpenAIs, et cetera? And we've seen both, right? And I don't know that there's one path that is more effective than the other. I would say the CEOs where I would have any concern is a CEO who just thinks in automation, just thinks in the save me money, and doesn't recognize that there's a bigger game being played here. And again, we happen to work with a lot of great CEOs who have significant vision in that direction. And so that's an exciting place to be. We tend to require at least executive level sponsorship, CEO level sponsorship. We want them to know what we're doing and why we're doing it and how to measure it, how to measure us from a successful standpoint. If this is a small automation originating from the customer service department, there's a risk there. That's not going to be as successful of a project.
There is a real tension between the speed at which AI can transform a business and the pace at which the humans involved can adapt. Are you seeing difficulties in that space with adoption?
I'm actually going to answer it in a couple ways. One, where I thought you were going with that, and I just want to flag it, is in software development, generally, we've gone from waterfall to agile, right? You write all the requirements down and then build it to agile. It's a lot more fluid and you're kind of designing it as you go. And I'm sure there are plenty of purists out there who would take umbrage with how I just described those two. But the point being, the pendulum is actually swinging back towards more requirements. And the analogy I would use is AI-assisted development is a rifle, right? And it can shoot something a mile away, and it goes very fast. But if you're pointed a little bit off when you fire that bullet, a mile away, it's dramatically off the target. And so we're very much a measure twice, cut once organization in terms of how you build these solutions. And I know that's not where you're headed, but that speed matters, right? The speed with which you can develop is a blessing and a curse, right? And you have to know what you're doing before you set it off to go do that, right? On the pace of human adoption, I do think a lot of our clients will ask us to surface the results of an AI solution in the systems that they are used to working in. If their people are used to working in Salesforce, the AI can surface its results and its analysis and its details in Salesforce. And so it's a slightly different disruption. You're not saying, hey, you've always done things with forms, and now we want you to use this weird new chat interface that you can't look back easily and it loses context because you fill the window. Like, there's ways to minimize the style of work disruption that an individual is going through, even though it's working fast, right? I think speed is probably one of those things people don't, people are like, oh, this is something that used to take us X and now it's being done in a fraction of a second. That then has trickle down impact. Like, oh, if the backlog's not here, where on the assembly line does the next backlog kick in? I think we're targeted at very specific solutions that solve an understandable problem that are delivering a specific value. We're not coming in and saying, hey, we're going to give you a new AI super intelligence across your entire organization. So I think the speed of adoption is a little easier there. But like I said, if you meet them where they already do work, it's easier to, oh, this is like an upgrade. It's just a different way.
This is a lot better than previous transformations in terms of you're not coming into a client environment and saying, you have a very discrete set of parameters that you will be using. It's one of those situations where you are going to be serving up the business process at a faster rate where they expect to interact with it, which is fascinating. The limits there are not against our understanding.
Yeah. Again, people take issue with these sorts of blanket statements, but they're fun to create thought. The days of, oh, we're going to come in and rip and replace an ERP system and spend 24 months, quick nudge, nudge, it's 36 months or more to do a complete system overhaul, new data, new processes, new workflows, new interfaces. Oh, and by the way, all of the same problems we had now are just ported over to a new system. Those days are, I think, in the past. I think you're going to have a lot more folks saying, we can use AI to solve a pricing problem, or we can use AI to solve a sourcing problem. And we don't need this massive upheaval of the whole ERP infrastructure to achieve that. One of the things that I recently wrote some bits about was when people say, hey, I can vibe code Salesforce in a weekend, they don't mean the entire feature set of Salesforce. It's a massive piece of software. What they do mean is, hey, we actually only use Salesforce for contact management and opportunity management and deal tracking, and I can get those kind of in my own solution. And I actually don't need all the rest of that stuff. I think you're going to see that same thing with processes. We don't need an ERP lift and replace because our issue is this process and this data, and we can use AI to actually, help us distill that and then move it back into the core system.
That is a lot of flexibility that we've never experienced in the past. And I know that this is impacting because I've had some very compelling conversations lately with friends that are still in the top tier firm world. And I know it's transforming their businesses right now. So it is a fascinating place to be. When we take a step back and think about how it's going to actually impact the organization, what jobs are generally at risk? Is it things that are more like customer service, operations?
Yeah. I think in an operational job, if the thing that you do can be distilled down to a standard operating procedure without a substantial amount of human intuition or insight or evaluation, that's an at-risk job. If I can write it up in a 2-page SOP, I can certainly have an AI do that task. And maybe it's not one AI, maybe it's 5 agents, but that's solvable. We've all had this experience, especially with customer service, right? I'll just get on and start screaming, give me a human immediately. Now, that might change as they get smarter, better, et cetera. But I actually think the concerns about governance are so high in those sorts of customer-facing interactions that we will find that humans dislike interacting with a heavily governed AI system. If you release the governors, who knows what it's going to do? I'm going to give everybody a refund to make them happy because I was told that my prime purpose is customer satisfaction. And so I think you're going to have these governed systems that just don't feel great. I think things like old school outbound sales work, email, calls, people would have been like, oh, that's gone. AI is going to do that. But we all know when we got an AI email, we all know when we got an AI LinkedIn, and we all probably ignore them right now. So I actually think there's going to be a pendulum swing back to what is the human-based outreach. People have all these tricks to do things with emails to make it look like that a human wrote this email, not an AI. None of us pick up the phone when we don't recognize the number. But you see the voicemail, and if it's a real human, you might react to it. So I think outbound sales is one of those ones where the pendulum is going to swing back and forth. Customer service, of course, companies are going to seek to offload service to AI, but I think humans will get frustrated. There's plenty of customer services organizations that have been fully kind of IVR and bot automated for a long time, and no one loves them. And so that's going to have to take a step forward. Again, if your job can be written up in 2 pages, that's a risk. I think creative problem handling will always be a human endeavor with AI assisting. Like, you shouldn't not ask the AI, give me 5 ways to handle this situation. It's going to be great at that kind of ideation, but ultimately that's for a human to respond to. There's a great book, The Rational Optimist, and it talks about humanity's gone through a series of technological shifts and changes. And I know that there's a ton of Silicon Valley hype cycle information right now. Oh, we're all going to lose our jobs and it's going to be universal basic income or universal high income, as Elon Musk recently said. I'm not positive I see that quite yet. And again, I could be wrong. Humans think linearly. I could just be thinking linearly. And maybe this is a bigger step function, but there's been step functions along the way, and humans have adapted and adopted, and new jobs have emerged, and my daughter's training to become an elementary school and special needs teacher. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. And if we're all complaining the ratio of teacher to student is 30-1 in these classes, great. Let's reduce that ratio to 4-1, because that's where humans are exceptional and great. So I'm an optimist. I'm not a pessimist about it. There are plenty of layoffs that are being couched as AI-driven layoffs right now that's a convenient way to cut a bunch of jobs to boost stock prices. I think it'll shake out over time. I think we're all benefiting from this massive arms race of investment in this amazing new technology. And for listeners out there who aren't having long-running chat threads about books that you're reading and things like, there's so much interesting and exciting value to be gotten from AI, both in your personal life as well as obviously professionally.
Most definitely. Andrew, I'd love to switch gears and to talk a little bit about your endurance athletics accomplishments, which are significant. I cannot believe that you have run 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. That is really intense. I'm a social runner, but not the kind of distance that you're doing. The longest that I've ever done is a half marathon.
I encourage everyone to get out there and get moving. I'm certainly not in my fittest shape that I've ever been, but what you described is after I left SmartThings, after I left Samsung, that was a goal that I saw this thing called the World Marathon Challenge. It's, as you said, it's a race where you start, in our case, we started in Antarctica because you want to start there. Weather can prevent you from getting in and out there. So that's where you start. Run a marathon. This was around 6 laps around a Russian research station airfield. Got done with that marathon, went into one of the shipping containers where living is happening, and a fully Russian speaking, non-English speaking person's behind there, and they have some food, and you're like, I'll take any and all of it. So a really interesting life experience. But we went from there to South Africa, to Perth, to Dubai, to Lisbon, to Cartagena, and all the way to Miami. Yeah, your life becomes, this is something I would encourage for anyone, is if you can distill your life down this narrowly, right? In that case, it was run, get on plane, eat, sleep, get off plane, run. That was the activity. And it took a tremendous amount of training to kind of be ready for that. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, obviously. But there was a magic in how narrow is the wrong word, but it's also the right word. How narrow your focus becomes, right? You're in this moment. And anybody who's done a sport and been in the zone or mountain biking where you're concerned that you're going to fall over, you know what I'm talking about. But having that for an extended period of time is a very freeing and liberating experience to have. And there's lots of ways to achieve that. From there, I did a bunch of Ironman and Ultraman, which is like a 3-day Ironman. The longest I've run is 100 miles. There's plenty of people who have run longer distances than that now. But that was a It was a great phase of my life. I do remember the last Ironman I did. I kind of stopped in the middle of the marathon at the end and I said, I think I'm done doing this for now. And so if you went down to my basement, you'd find my bike and it still has the stickers from that race on it. It's like I put it in a corner and it hasn't moved since then. So we'll see if we dust it off and get it back out here.
That's a good sign that you've literally had completion in that phase in your life. And I take it to be able to accomplish such distance, there has to be something that you took away from the experience from a focus perspective that has helped you in business.
Yeah. There's a great book about ultra marathoning, and I believe it's the title. And I apologize to the author if it's not the title, but the phrase is relentless forward progress. Meaning, if you want to ultra marathon, if you want to run 50, 75, 100 miles, there will be moments where you just don't want to keep going. And that doesn't mean relentless like forward speed. It doesn't mean relentless like always going fast. It simply means that the journey must continue. You may not stop, right? And you have to be relentless in that pursuit. And I think that is very applicable in a startup business, right? If you become static, maybe you're complacent because the business is fine and it's producing good income and you're happy. I don't know if that's a safe place to operate from. So I think that lesson, as codified by that phrase, relentless forward progress, is for any entrepreneur has got to be kind of part of what you understand the job that you're taking on to be.
I want to switch to the conversation that we had about during your SmartThings days. You talked about a competitor appearing with a product that felt existential at the moment, with far more capability than your product. You said that you had to stick to the plan, which also kind of relates to your relentless forward pursuit. How do you know in that moment whether sticking to the plan is wisdom or denial?
Gosh, the backstory here will appeal to maybe 100 total people on the planet, so I'll keep it short. But when SmartThings was launching its hardware, which is one of the things that we did, it was a hardware and software and mobile app play. There's a hub that basically connects to all of the smart devices in your home, your lights and your locks and your thermostats, et cetera. And there's a couple of different radio frequency standards that we had embraced and said, those are the two we're betting on. But there were a lot of devices coming onto the world in 2012, 2013, and they were of different standards, and it wasn't clear who the winners were going to be. And this competitor emerged, and they had 7 radios in their hub. They had 7 standards, and we were immediately like, did we underplay this? Are they going to kill us because they can connect to more devices? And if we had waffled there, and we had some deep conversations as a leadership team, if we had waffled there, if you redesign your hardware, you set yourself back a long period of time. Hardware doesn't just come into existence. It takes time. And the decision was made, no, we chose these for a reason. We had conviction when we chose them. We did our work then. This is a new data point. And for a second, it did feel existential, right? It was like, we've missed the mark. We've messed this up. We set ourselves down the wrong path. But we had to come back to our earlier conviction. Why did we do that? Did we do enough diligence to understand that this was sufficient to give us access to the market that we wanted? Did we have the right partners as a result of this? And I think if you've done thoughtful work and arrived at a conclusion and something comes and challenges that conclusion on its face, the first thing to do is not panic. The first thing is to go back to the core principle. What was the thoughtful work that you did in order to arrive at the conclusion that you're at? I think that really informs the stay the course or not. Is there new information that's like exists in the world that you didn't have that has now been brought to your attention? That's great. Sometimes outside influences give you new information and you do have to react to them. And then for us, it was very much a risk reward of reconsidering, which was really driven by time and investment, right? Time and cost. And so I think if you're an entrepreneur, especially in the technology space, there's a gazillion people doing things that look similar to what you might be doing, right? If you've got a great idea today, rest assured 100 other people who are entrepreneurs have a similar idea. It might not be your exact idea, but a similar idea. And they're going to talk about it and they're going to talk enthusiastically about it. You have to have a little bit of thick skin to that information coming in. But if you do perceive, hey, if new piece of information is true, then we are fundamentally dead in the water. That's the time to pause, go back to your basics, do the reflection, maybe redo your analysis, and then, to your point, continue forward relentlessly.
The good news is with what you're doing with Contextual, you are going to be able to reflect, take stock, listen to new information, and pivot very quickly.
That comes back to owning your AI for a business is if you own this, you can change this, you can adjust this. You're not locked into a contract or a system or something like that. You can choose to pivot. If a new capability emerges, you can choose to embrace it, but you're not locked in. And so that's exactly right. Flexibility now more than ever. It certainly matters if you're building software-based solutions, technology-based solutions.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, in closing, if you could send a message to every CEO listening to today's episode, what do they need to do differently in the next 12 months around AI? Not what they should know, but what they need to do differently.
I would expect that some of those CEOs are paralyzed by the pace of information that's coming out. And if you believe that, if your current belief is that the pace of information and the pace of innovation is going to stabilize and then we can make choices, you need to change your way of thinking. That is not going to be the case. I mean, we see announcements from Claude every other day with interesting new disruptive technology. They just came out with Claude Design. If you're at Figma, I'd be concerned. If you're at Canva, I'd be concerned, right? I think if your way of thinking is, I'm paralyzed because the pace is too high and I need it to stop, I need it to stabilize, you need to do differently and say, it's only going to get faster. And therefore, either we start moving or we are going to be leapfrogged here by something that we didn't even expect or see. So the other thing that I would say from a do differently standpoint is within your organization, I don't know that people are doing this or not, but within your organization, you have employees who are using AI at night to build a new software product or a new personal trainer. You have employees whose job might not be to touch AI. They're a pipe fitter in a commercial refrigeration organization, but they're using it in their personal life. Reach out to them. Get educated through that usage. It's an unbelievable resource and asset that you have. I would bring that to the forefront, embrace that, and seek that unique and compelling knowledge that your employees already have that you might not be tapping into.
The innovation and creativity there is remarkable. And when you can have a two-way conversation about it, it's only going to inform the new decisions that you make.
Exactly.
Andrew, what a fascinating conversation. I thank you so much for your time today. And you are an absolute luminary. I believe you are going to make a tremendous impact on how people choose to design purpose-built AI for their business. It's going to literally be its own hockey stick of how you're going to make businesses run more efficiently.
First of all, thank you for having me. I enjoyed the conversation as well. It's a fun and exciting time. Anybody who kind of works in the industry probably spends a little bit of time being fearful, a little bit of time being excited. And if any of your listeners are having those same feelings, they're not alone. Thanks for having me. And I really did appreciate the time.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Here are the top 3 takeaways from today's discussion. Own your AI. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions. Businesses should leverage AI to create unique processes and defensible moats, not just rent features from SaaS providers. Build purpose-built solutions tailored to your organization and industry. Adoption is about empowering people. Successful AI rollouts meet employees where they already work, emphasize human-in-the-loop design, and create advocates from the ground up. Early wins and user feedback drive lasting change. Progress demands relentlessness. Whether running ultramarathons or scaling startups, Andrew champions relentless forward progress. In a world where the pace of AI innovation only accelerates, leaders must shed paralysis, harness internal AI expertise, and move decisively, or risk getting leapfrogged. As you reflect on today's discussion and you think about the challenges you're faced with in your workplace, prioritize employee engagement and adoption in the process. Look for the Meet with Me link in the show notes to explore how I can help you navigate change with ease. Thanks so much for listening, and share your thoughts in the comments.